Behind every brand, every movement, every leader, every transformation, there's a story. And intertwined in these stories is a message. And this podcast is for you, the next gen leader, coach, entrepreneur, and influencer. My name is Brady, and I'm a branding mentor and sales story strategist. I hope you see me more of a guide than a host as I share the stories behind the brands, so you can take these stories, experiences, principles, and teachings and use them to share your story with the world. Welcome to the story behind removing bad reviews on the internet. I got one of my I just met a few months ago, Rajiv the Assassin. He helps people remove bad reviews off the internet, and also helps people create worldwide influence by getting them in front of the United Nations. He actually spoke in front of the United Nations, and when he gave his presentation, he got hired by a country to solve the problem that he talked about at the United Nations. And so I just thought that was really incredible. We're talking about worldwide influence here. He came to our $1 Million Mastermind, okay, was the star of the show, stole the light in all the best ways. Super excited to have him on here today, and we're going to have a great conversation. Hey, thanks for coming on, man. Fill in the gaps.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It is an immense honor and privilege to be acquainted to the amazing, the famous, the magnificent Brady, who is an icon in communication, branding, and marketing. So it's an honor to be here. Happy to be here.
What's funny is my friend texted me last night, and or I messaged him. I was like, dude, we haven't hung out in a while. Come over. And he said something of the fact like, you're an icon now, man. And I was like, no, I'm working on the icon status. And he's like, no, you got to embody it. Say, I am an icon.
Exactly. Well, and what I just said is a double confirmation of that. It's like the universe trying to get your attention by saying, Travis, just step into it, own it. Just own it already.
How come it's so hard to honor it? Sometimes you get those bad reviews going through your head of the past. You know what I mean? You've been working in this for a while. What got you into this, Phil? This is a very unique type of thing. The internet is not very well monitored sometimes, and when it is, it seems like it's monitored in the worst ways. Especially during COVID. So yeah, how did you get into all this?
Yeah, so it's like I'd like to take a step back by explaining what my core values are. So my core values are hope. Hope is my platform. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, it'll probably say something like this. Hope is the ground that I walk on, and laughter and humor is my oxygen. So these two things are my two pillars, or my what really keeps me moving. And the hope part of it comes from, there was a certain point in time in my life many, many, many years ago where I was at the lowest point, where I almost felt moved to end my own life. And I heard a voice that says, Rajiv, stop, just stop. And that really caused me to pause and reassess the path that I was on, and reassess specifically the action I was about to take. And I just literally stepped back from the ledge and said, you know what? You're right. I mean, why am I even doing this? There's so much possibility that exists in the world. And it was just reframing the issue by saying, don't do this. You can be bigger than the problem. And you decide as to who you are, what you are, how you want the world to see you, and don't let somebody else frame that for you. And from that moment forward, my mission has been to infuse hope into the world. And I do that in a variety of ways. One way is reputation management, because I've worked with large Fortune 500 brands. I helped Unilever get into the Guinness Book of Records by making their most successful campaign till date. We created the world's largest jigsaw puzzle that engaged 300,000 active users every single day for 6 months. So it was massive. And the effect of that campaign was it sold the product out nationally in retail and wholesale twice back to back in one of the most crowded markets that exists on the planet, in India. and certainly in a very mature category like hot beverages. So that work, as well as my experience with so that work gave me a view as to the impact of perception, the impact of brand, and how people view that online. So impressions and brands and experiences online is something that drew my attention to the power and significance of it. And oftentimes we see that people go to Google, they look someone up, they whatever they see is something that they believe automatically as gospel truth, and they make a
Mhm.
snap judgment. If they see something good, great. But if they see something bad, which oftentimes is the case because haters be hating, and that's all they do, they like to tear people down. And
Yeah.
that can be devastating to
Mhm.
people, to companies, to families, to businesses. And that is a wrong that needs to be righted. And that's why I do what I do. Because in getting that corrected, it's enabling for the business owner to continue to do the right thing and continue to serve customers, which he or she already is doing, which
Mhm.
means it's a domino effect of supporting the families of his team, making the ecosystem better, serving his community, all that sort of thing. So if a bad review is going to destroy a company, a person, it just has a really extended domino effect that would absolutely incapacitate an entire community. And again, this is something that should not be left unattended. And
Mhm.
that's exactly why I do what I do, because of the significance of it.
Yeah. So they say the first person to come to the scene and set the narrative, whoever sets the narrative first, it's hard to fight that narrative. Politicians do this all the time, right? Whoever's first to show what happens, then it's like you're always trying to fight that narrative. You know what I mean? So if someone gets a good or bad review with you, that is the narrative that you're constantly working against, right? It's kind of like, and it's just natural human behavior, in my opinion. You know, if I said, hey, I'm going to introduce you to Rajiv. Look at him. He looks kind of sketchy, doesn't he? The way he dresses and he looks. Now the perception is, oh, he's sketchy. But if I say Rajiv is the best dude in the entire world, he's fun. He's he's going to pump you up, he's going to make you look good. Now the frame is always that, you know what I mean? So it is really important to set the narrative of your brand, you know, and a lot of that does come through reviews. So you've been doing this for how long now?
12 plus years.
12 plus years. And so in seventh grade, you decided you wanted to remove bad reviews from the internet, right?
No.
What
No.
did you want to be when you were younger?
Well, honestly, when I was younger, I think I wanted to be a scientist.
A scientist?
Yeah.
What kind of scientist?
I don't know, someone that did dope shit,
Uh,
like someone that just created something cool, someone that was inventing cool stuff.
okay.
Yeah, I think that was what I envisioned for myself when I was in seventh grade.
So tell us a little bit more about some of the things you have removed from the internet and what that process looks like, and how would you find negative stuff? Is it something where people are like, oh, I know this is bad out there, or is it something where we should research it to find the negative reviews? So with the people you work with, what's that common story that you're helping them with?
Yeah, so well, thank you for that question, Travis. And basically the approach is that my mission in life, beyond infusing hope into the world, is to ensure that trusted advisors of people in the public eye are aware of my existence. So essentially, when things go sideways, they typically will tell their stakeholder, which could be the CEO, the politician, the actor, the athlete, the whoever, I know a guy. And then essentially, they are the ones that are coming to me by saying, oh my God, look what happened. The haters are just saying nasty things about us. Can you do something about it? So the use case is that the client reaches out, knocks on my door, and says, hey, listen, this just happened. Can you help? At which point they have already outlined the scope of exactly what is going on, like the bad reviews, the comments, the press articles that allege, bad behavior, et cetera, et cetera. So the client is telling me ahead of time exactly what the problem is, at which point I can research this. Me and my team will research this and give them a code in either immediately or in 12 to 24 hours on average. And then the client makes the payment, we get the work done, give them updates, status reports. Then this way they're updated on what's going on. So that is the typical use case. In addition to that, sometimes clients are asking us to be on the lookout for anything nasty that's connected to them. Again, haters are saying a whole bunch of things either on social or Reddit or like Twitter, X, a variety of places, and then we're then looking on an ongoing basis as a preemptive basis to identify them and then delete those comments from wherever they exist so that we can mitigate any damage that can happen by that comment. Because like I explained earlier, people see something, they just make a snap judgment immediately without seeing the entire picture or seeing the other side of the story, and then
Hmm.
obviously thinking the worst of anyone and then advocating to others to see them as the same way. So that's why when you get rid of it's like a cancer, right? You cut the cancer out, and this way, then the cancer then ceases to exert influence over you and ceases to have that level of damage and destroy, your life, your livelihood, your peace of mind. So that's kind of like our typical approach, how we help clients.
Nice. Yeah. Speaking of cancer, I got some stuff removed last week right here. And it's not everyone's like, oh my gosh, are you okay? It's a low form of cancer. It's basal cells. It's common in the family. And I was talking to the doctor about it, and she was saying, yeah, even though it's a low form, if it's left years like unnoticed, you could be really hacking deep into your face. And it could absolutely spread. And the same thing goes against bad reviews. You want to make sure you come in and set the narrative, straight as soon as possible. And sometimes there's a saying goes that, I'll let my actions speak for themselves. What's your thoughts about that statement in regards of what you do and everything?
Yeah, I personally believe that actions speak louder than words, and that's great for the people that know you. But what about the people that don't know you? In that case, the only evidence that they have of you is what they see online. And if what they see online is terrible, they're immediately going to think the worst of you. So the solution is either you get that garbage removed from Google, whether it's a bad review on Google My Business or it's a story in the New York Times or whichever website or on social media that is talking nasty things about you, sullying your good name, dragging your business and your company through the mud, whatever they're doing, that needs to be stopped. So that's one piece of it. And the flip side of that is resetting the narrative, where you tell your side of the story, and you can do that in two ways. Either by basically just focusing everything on you, so not addressing the issue that's happening. This way, you're
Mhm.
not per se, adding oxygen to that fire, just kind
Mhm.
of refocusing on who you are, what you're about, what your mission is, what your why is, who you serve, that sort of thing. So this way, when people are Googling you, typically by your name, all they will see are, let's say, interviews with Forbes or your speech at the United Nations. They'll see your review of the Amazon bestseller book that you wrote. And of course, these are all things that we help clients achieve, or whether it's speaking at the United Nations or being an Amazon best-selling author or having an amazing podcast, much like this amazing podcast that I'm on. So these are all things that we're helping for clients to realize and achieve. And in addition to that, we're also helping them dominate all of Google and YouTube by creating content and marketing that content such that when people Google them, all they see is that favorable, friendly content. So that can be
Mhm.
used both in firefighting when the haters are coming after you, as well as battling competition, because this content will essentially eclipse entirely the competitors. So when you're the only choice, you then become the prevailing consideration and the ones that people choose. That's why your phone is going to ring off the hook when this happens, because people now see you, they like you, they choose you, they trust you, they have confidence in you, and then they want to work with you.
I've called it the 90-10 rule. If you're talking good about yourself, you'll be 10% influential. If someone else is talking good about you, you'll be 90% more influential. right? So like people setting the tone of your brand is really really important. With what you do, what's the craziest thing you've got removed from someone? And what was that? Was that are we talking like dark web type shit? Like how, I mean I guess you can't give away all your secrets, right? But what does that process look like on your end and what's the craziest shit you've removed?
Yeah, it's been like a whole bunch of stuff. It could be a story about an influencer being accused of saying the N-word, some sort of racial slur. We've kind of got that removed because that would, if allowed to persist, that would have killed her deal with, I think, Walmart or Target, her beauty cosmetic lines, which
Mm.
obviously, would have cost her like millions of dollars. So that's one thing. In fact, the craziest story is when they say truth is stranger than fiction. So this was a story of an executive in transition who was in the job market for like 7 months, looking for a job, finally got her dream job in her dream company, and it was a high seven-figure offer. And she was already visualizing herself in the corner office and what that would look like, probably already shopping new wardrobe. And then when she's thinking that she's going to go and sign the offer letter which she already received, and then she hears those words from her executive recruiter that nobody wants to hear, which is the company has moved in a different direction. And she was like,
Uh,
what? Like, what are you talking about? And then she queried further, and the recruiter says, oh, they think you're a criminal. She was like, criminal? Me? I went to Yale, God damn it, not jail. So what are you talking about? But sure enough, she Googled herself, and at the top of her Google was her doppelganger, who had the same first name as her. The doppelganger was a woman, a blonde, just like her, looked like her even, and that person had a criminal background. And the
uh,
company, when they did their due diligence, saw that and they were like, wait, what? Yeah, you're a criminal. Of course, they didn't look further. And even if they did, they said, you know what, this is just too much. This is a very high level hire. We just can't deal with this. And they just said, you know what, next, swipe left, and we're just moving on with someone else. And then, of course, her life was over pretty much at that point because the level that she was at, I think she was joining the C suite either as a COO or CEO of that company. It was probably a publicly traded company. So, hence the high seven-figure offer. And she was in that job search process. So if this didn't work, probably the same thing would happen at the next thing because they would be looking at the same thing, Googling her and then seeing the same thing. So the recruiter said, you know what, why don't you contact the assassin, the R Square Media, Rajiv, contact them. This is literally what they do. And she contacted us. We looked into it. We got it done. And to our surprise, we got it done so fast. We got it done in 2 weeks. We removed it in 2 weeks, and because of that, the recruiter reached out to the company, informed them, they verified it, and she was then hired. So our work literally saved her life. It saved her professional career. It salvaged her professional career, potentially her marriage as well. Because, if this had allowed to happen, she would have gone from here all the way here. Her earning potential would have just been destroyed. So that's the strangest thing where it's like something that people don't even consider as harmful could absolutely kill you.
yeah, your brand is everything. Invest into it with everything. Love it with everything. Protect it with everything because it is everything. I was watching the Untold Story of Brett Favre. Just came out, and wow, wow! If you should watch it, you should absolutely watch it, and it just shares all these behind the scenes stories. And after you watch that movie, you're just like, holy cow, this dude, in my opinion, brand and reputation was ruined by a lot of stuff that he did off the field. You know what I mean? And
Mm,
people, I think people ignore that part of their life sometimes. You know what I mean? And it was just crazy. You'll have to watch it and see it. And I'm just like, man, how does this guy even come back for something like this? But there's this woman in the story who um got caught up in this sexting scandal with him that in my opinion wasn't guilty from at least the story that was told. And it was, I bet she was relieved to get her side of the story out and refabricate and I guess what's the word I would say? Just revitalize her brand and her reputation. I was
mm.
checking out her Instagram, and everyone's shouting her out. I think we were talking about Manti Te'o last time. Did you ever watch that documentary?
No, not yet, not
Yeah,
yet. I've
Manti Te'o, he was basically accused of faking a girlfriend, and
all
uh,
right.
and come to find out, he was just catfished by a dude. This
Oh
dude was
wow.
pretending to be a girl. He was even on Dr. Oz and did the whole fake voice and everything. It's crazy. And after you watch this documentary, you're just like, I owe that man an apology.
Mm.
You know, Johnny Menzel kind of has a story of redemption through his story. So the story behind the scene, it sooner or later it does come to light, as far as everything goes. What have you ever got someone coming to you and saying, "Hey, I need you to remove this," but they are really not a I mean, they are kind of a douchebag. Like, have you, I mean, how do you vet these guys out? You know what I mean? Or do you just
Yeah.
or do you just quadruple charge them for what they're doing?
Well, sometimes, but the thing is that, and this is something that I've learned in my, many years doing this, that there are always three sides to the story. There's your version, their version, and the version.
Mm,
So there's
mm,
always like an angle that you're not aware of. And
yeah,
sometimes the public perception of someone could be that, oh my God, they're such a douche, they're a scumbag, they're a whatever. And then the real story is something, maybe it's slightly related, but the real story is something far beyond your wildest comprehension and a dream where you're like, wow, really? Like someone, I've seen stories where other people have attacked them and done what is called character assassination, where they've perpetuated stories in the press that so and so is a pedophile, they're a human trafficker, they're a whatever, they're
that's
all
some
that
dark
stuff.
shit. That's some dark
I
shit.
know, I know. So it's like when you see that, and the way that they were attacked was from high level authority articles like Forbes and New York Times and stuff like that. So whoever was after the client had like real enemies that really wanted to destroy his life, shame him publicly, make it so that he could not have a living, that he had no peace of mind, no relationships, nothing, and they really were coming after him with everything that they got. So sometimes when you kind of look at stuff like that, you kind of have to just pause and really kind of go a few levels deeper to identify the real story. And of course, sure, if they've done some stuff, because nobody's perfect and they are trying to honestly make better choices, be a better version of themselves, I would always kind of give them, a consideration of if I can work with them. Now, obviously, there are certain things that I just absolutely will not touch, like endangering the welfare of children. That's something that
Mm,
I just don't go near
yeah,
because my platform is about youth empowerment. I've spoken at the United Nations several times about youth empowerment. So that's something that I care very passionately and deeply about. And if someone approaches me that, let's say, admits has endangered the welfare of a minor, that's something that I just absolutely would not work with. I mean, they can
yeah.
pay me whatever they say they're going to pay me. I just would not work with them, nor would any of my team work with them either, because yeah, that's just someone that he does not, yeah, that is helping them would literally be going against our policy, which is letting bad actors get away with it. And
Yeah.
we don't do that. We're actually very upfront about not letting bad actors get away with it. And the people that we help are good people that have been victimized.
There's in my mind two suicidal things that someone can do to their brand. There's two things that your brand can never come back from. I think everything else besides these two things, if you're willing to do the work and humble yourself and really admit fault, you can recover from anything except for these two things. The first one is if you kill someone. I don't think you're recovering from killing someone. And then the second thing is exactly what we were just talking about, which is hurting children in any way, whether it's physically or sexually. I just think those two things you're never coming back from. One of my good friends, I won't mention name because I'm sure he doesn't want this out there, even though it is out there. He talked about how he cheated on his wife, and he was really hated for a while. But he's like, I just took ownership. I made up for it. Me and my ex-wife had a really good relationship now. And so I think almost anything you can come back from if you're willing to do the work, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. I think it makes a ton of sense. It's kind of like Bill Clinton, right? So Bill Clinton was ousted from office because of his scandal with Monica Lewinsky.
Hmm.
And if you think about it, Bill Clinton was a very effective president, right? He did a lot of good for the country. I think the economy was doing well. We didn't have any wars per se at that time. Everything was going good. And then he had this this thing that happened and then he lied about it. Now, whether in the grand scheme of things, whether that matters or not is a subjective opinion that we can kind of debate for hours and hours. But the point is that obviously, as the president and the main man, you're under the most scrutiny. And he had two choices: either to say that, yeah, I did it, I'm sorry, my bad, or he said no. And then, of course, there was a huge big trope and satire of no, I did not have sex with Miss Lewinsky, blah blah. I did not tell her to lie, blah. So that just like he perpetuated a lie which was then discovered and then he was caught. He was caught saying the lie. So he could have easily got out by just coming clean. And sure, he would have gotten some little hate, but he would have still been, president even after coming clean. I don't think that was severe enough for him to, like be impeached or whatever. So that's kind of like one thing. But the reason I bring it up is because sure, he had like a wave of hate hitting him for a while that followed, a few years that followed, but then he recovered from that. They created the Clinton Foundation a while ago prior to, or during or prior to, him becoming a president or even as a senator. And the Clinton Foundation is doing great. In fact, he is one of the most sought after public speakers that out there probably charges like $1 million a minute to speak. I'm sure Goldman Sachs pays him as much whenever he does his leadership conferences and stuff like that. So the point is, even for a certain period of time, even though he was vilified, people were saying whatever they were saying about him, but he did recover by refocusing on doing good in the world with the Clinton Foundation, doing good work in Africa, solving for water shortages and food scarcity and things like that, which helped to color and shape what he was about and draw attention away from that sex scandal into I'm actually trying to do good in the world. And
Yeah.
that and a large focus on that on an ongoing basis for many years then reshaped the narrative and took over the narrative of, you know what, Bill Clinton is actually a stand-up guy. And now the prevailing narrative is that he's a stand-up guy, he's a force for good in the world. And that's a narrative that is now taken mainstream and has been mainstream for several years. Because otherwise, if that wasn't the case, Goldman Sachs or anyone wouldn't pay, anyone who's been vilified, 10 million or whatever to do a keynote speech.
Yeah, I guess it depends on who you talk to. I don't know if the Republicans would agree with you on that one.
No, no, that's fair. That's fair. But the point is that that's just an example of how someone who has been really
Yeah,
dragged through the mud was able to then recover.
yeah, for
And
sure.
you're at the highest levels of scrutiny at that point.
Hmm.
And the same is true for Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump, I'm a huge Donald Trump fan. If the people, all the haters that are out there, whatever. But the point is, Donald Trump is a genius, and he understands marketing like no one else. He understands media. He understands the media machine. He's been attacked like crazy, and he's found a way to repurpose that almost like jujitsu and
Yeah.
turn that into fuel and galvanize even further to the point that when people attack him, his base gathers around him even more. So he's like a unique phenomenon that I don't think there's anyone that has been like Donald Trump or will be like Donald Trump anytime soon. He certainly is an outlier, but he's someone that, has been hit with a variety of scandal, but has always managed to come out of it because the power of his brand is focused on his ability to make the right decisions, to stand by his stakeholders, to deliver value to
Mhm.
people. And of course, people could say whatever they nasty things they say about him, but when you actually look deeper, you'll see that he's an amazing leader. He's a great people person. He's really personable in person with staff, with employees, with just general people as well. So people have this impression of, who he is based on one thing that they're seeing probably most likely out of context. But then when you actually look at the interviews of his life and how he is and the values that he imbibes in his children, you then have to marvel, maybe even privately, that oh my God, this guy is like freaking amazing. He's awesome. I aspire to be like that and to reach the level of success that he has. And the point is like, sure, businesses have ups and downs, and And that is, no different to what he's experienced, where he had a really high in his business in the casinos in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And then that went down. Then he had like a stake line and an aeroplane. And sure, their businesses go up and down. In fact, Richard Branson also is a serial entrepreneur, much like Donald Trump, who also has had various, crests and troughs, so to speak, but he still moves on. He still keeps going. So the point is about you could have adversity hit you in the face. The point is, what do you do next? It's kind of like
Yeah.
speech from, Rocky Balboa. It's like life is going to keep hitting you. What are you going to
Yep.
do? Are you going to stay down? Are you going to get up? You're going to shake it off and keep going forward. So it like who you are, the nature of who you are, that is what really comes across in how you deal with life. And that's what people see.
I think negative publicity hurts more of the person that it hurts more of that person and affects them moving forward than I think the actual thing hurts them, if that makes sense. Because I've if you're a leader, you're just gonna be under scrutiny regardless of what you do. It's like you get and it's the pros and cons of leadership. And I think sometimes leadership isn't always cracked up what it's meant to be. You know what I mean? Because if the event and things go great, you're just the hero.
Yeah, you
But if
celebrate it.
things go wrong, you're the villain. And you kind of have to accept both things. And I think over time you learn how to disconnect from them, honestly, and really focus just on the process and not the actual product. And that's what I've had, because we've had some events and everyone's happy, everyone's excited. The Millionaire Mastermind. I mean, there's a few things I heard here and there, but about like organization, the during the breakout sessions, which was absolutely totally like it was it was true in that aspect, which in the grand scheme of things, in my opinion, didn't take away from the event.
Not
And
at all.
then, you have an event where, it went good, but then there's a few people that have said stuff, and then you just get in your head, and then you start affecting yourself, and then you start creating the narrative inside of your head, which then affects your brand, which then affects your voice. And then what I've noticed with people is you just stop talking. You stop putting yourself out there on social media. And I don't even know what I would call this concept, but maybe I need to brand this concept. But there's a concept where people are going to usually remember the last thing that you did. So
Mm,
if you come across something and you messed up or something bad happened and you don't continue to put yourself out there, then that's all to really focus on. That's all everyone's going to really focus on. But if you fell and you keep moving through those failures, people don't get stuck on the failure as much as you think you do. You know what I mean? We're kind of, I think we have this um, I don't know what to call it, the self egotism. Like we just think everyone's thinking about us all the time and that we're the center of the attention of the entire world.
right.
You know what I mean? And the truth is, you're not as important as you really think you are, and people don't think about you all the time. At least that's my perception, of most people. Maybe that's not true for people like Donald Trump or people that are in the limelight. So I think negative reviews, it hurts more of the person's confidence than I think actually hurts them. But, I guess it just depends upon, what exactly you did through the process.
Absolutely. And, just to kind of address what you said. So I think in marketing, there are these two concepts called the halo effect and the horn effect. Halo
Yes.
effect is basically when you do something good and people just have this very glowy, like lovely impression of who you are, and they're like in looking at you with starry-eyed surprise and awe and wonder. So that's like the halo effect. And the horn effect means when something goes bad, then they're just looking at you like thinking that you're just like terrible, you're ineffective, you are incompetent, etc. So the point is that some of us may go through these phases of halo effect and horn effect, but the point is that what you do once there's a horn effect, what are you doing about it? Are you just going to like sit down and put your head down, or are you going to use that as a learning and say, okay, great, that didn't work, let's try something else? So if you keep trying and you keep iterating and trying new things, people are obviously going to see that you're trying new things and will recognize that you are somebody that does not let adversity keep you down. and you're one of those people that keep moving, and maybe you believe in Kaizen, which is about continuous change, continuous improvement, small improvements, incremental improvements. So these are concepts that help you to kind of keep moving forward, keep your eye on the prize, so to speak, and don't let these temporary situations slow you down, because technically it's a speed bump, in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And which kind of brings us to our next conversation. Why it's so important to speak is because you get the opportunity to utilize that halo effect into your favor. You know what I mean? And you usually stay at the level of whatever you've been inserted in someone's life, right? It's really hard to fight the initial brand introduction of where you're at. Like, my mom cut hair. She's still cutting hair. She's been cutting hair for 39 years, bro.
Wow.
39 years. Most hairstylists don't make it past 10 because it's just so hard on their body. Um, but she's been cutting hair for a long time. She's had clients for a long time, and she's like, "Oh man, this client needs to come to your leadership experience. They would benefit so much." And she has had the hardest time getting people to my events. And I was like, because they always see me as little shithead Travis running around the house with one of those haircut capes, pretending like I'm Superman and bugging mom, right? The perception of me will always be that little kid. And there's some people, and I've kind of noticed this in my life, the person meets me, but where they meet me is when I'm on the news. That's when they first see me, is when on the news. Their perception of Travis Brady is different. And when I was younger and maybe a little bit more egocentric, I'd be like, wow, that's so cool. I'm so awesome. But over time, it's just like, dude, that's just the game, bro. That's just like people are going to treat you at the level that they insert in your life. And so you just got to understand this, in your life. And it just comes back down to, why branding is so important. And I was um I was making some calls on some new leads that came in, and these new leads don't necessarily know my whole entire story. I send out videos and stuff, but they probably don't watch them. I called this guy, and I felt like I was the annoying grandpa that he was trying to get off the phone. And I'm just like, in my head, I was like, "Do you know who you're talking to? Do you know who you're talking to?" And then just as soon as I thought that, I was like, it doesn't matter if he knows who I am. It matters, do I know who I am? Right?
Exactly.
And that's the most important thing, is to really know who you are and have a mission and a purpose that's bigger than yourselves. And that's really the people we love to follow. You think about the people that we love to follow, they make us feel good about who we are. They're not interesting, they're interested, right? They're
Mm,
interested in that person. They make them feel like a rock star, and then by default they create that influence in every little person in the room, and then now they're the most interesting person in the room, not because they're the most interesting, because they were the most interested in other people.
mm.
And those are the people we love to follow, that have a bigger purpose, a bigger mission. Here's what I'm fighting for, and we love to get on their side, right? Like Martin Luther King Jr. I believe every man, woman, and child should be free regardless of their color, because he believed what we all believe, that we should all be treated equally regardless of the
Yeah.
color of our skin or our background. And so I've just really noticed that over the years. You've gotten into speaking, you spoke in front of the United Nations. What was that experience like?
It was amazing. Obviously, the first time that I spoke at the United Nations was in 2020 at the World Homelessness Summit, and the topic of my speech was solving homelessness by leveraging coaching and technology. And after I delivered my speech, which was a quick 7-minute speech, the country of Malawi, which is in Africa, demanded I help them solve child homelessness, and that was just such a humbling red letter moment for me, because, well, speaking at the UN was just incredibly awesome for me to begin with. But then after speaking at the UN, to have a country say, hey, we like what you do. Can you help us? I was like, what? Me? I was like, hell yeah. All day long. Obviously,
I have those moments too. I was like, oh, me? What?
yeah, I mean, it's just truly humbling and gratifying, because it almost, it kind of tells you that you are a lot more effective, you're a lot more impressive than even you think that you are. And
Mhm.
people, the way that people experience you is a lot more it's more than you think that it is, because there's so many other factors to experience, whether how you are, how you show up, the tonality, the emotion that you're delivering with whatever you're saying, the emotional connection, the energetic connection that people have with you. uh,
Mhm.
all of that kind of goes into how people experience you, which they may be aware of consciously or subconsciously or unconsciously. And the point is, when you get this validation and acknowledgement, public acknowledgement at the highest level, it just kind of goes to show that, you know what, you've been right all along. It's just that previously people didn't recognize it, but eventually you will meet someone that does. And
Mhm.
that is a confirmation that you actually are everything that you think you are. I'm not saying that in a vain, conceited, prideful kind of way. It's more so just a self belief in who you are.
Yeah, it reminds me of the quote, "Be so good they can't ignore you."
Mm,
Be so good they can't ignore you. Years ago, I had this dark shadow warrior part of myself that said, "I don't care if you fucking like me. I don't even care if you love me, but you will respect me based upon what I've done and what I do and what I give." And it just kind of came back to that, like, hey, I want to be so good and provide so much value. You can't ignore me and what I have to give. And so I don't think it's egotistical. In fact, you look at some of these high performers, like Michael Jordan, they did have, a really edgy ego that was like kind of a this there was a little bit of a darkness to it. You know what I mean? And Tom Brady obviously is one of my heroes, not just because his last name's Brady and there's a distant blood relation. I think he's amazing. I think he's an amazing person. I've learned a lot about leadership from him. I remember one of the moments that really um, flipped things for me is I don't know if you remember this, when Antonio Brown ran off the field, took his pads off and ran off the middle of the field, and Tom Brady had stuck his neck out for him to be there with the Buccaneers. And uh, Antonio Brown later ended up like bashing Tom Brady, that I thought was so unfortunate. But after the game, they were asking Tom Brady about it, like, "Aren't you mad? Aren't you pissed off? Blah blah blah." And Tom Brady's response was, "I think we should have more empathy for Antonio Brown and everything that he's gone through." And when he said that, I was like, why would you say that? You stuck your neck out for him and he did that to you. And then I just really thought about it. I was like, wow, what a fucking awesome dude. What an awesome hero. And it
yeah.
just really made me think in my life, like, where can I protect more people around me, even though they do me wrong? Where,
Mm.
because sometimes we don't realize that we are in fact causing the bad energy to come back around to us, like the karma, right? And earlier in my days of business, I would burn bridges on purpose and I would say the thing that I really wanted to say, and I would in not in a huge like dramatistic way, just mention it to people around me, but that eventually comes back around. People whisper so much more than you think they do. People whisper so much more than they think they do. So I think it's important to make sure that, hey, at the end of the day, we could have not worked together in this. And it's not that I don't want you to eat, it's that I just don't want to eat at the same table as you.
That's a great way of putting it, Travis. And I'd like to, address what you said briefly about what Tom Brady, how he responded, because I read this book a while ago called Monergy, The Energy of Money. It was
Mhm.
written by an author called Robert Fisher. I actually have a podcast with him called the Moonshot Podcast. But in his book, essentially what he talks about is that when someone disses you, if you diss them back, you're essentially perpetuating that same negativity. But if you don't diss them back and you actually say something good about them, technically what that means is you then now have what is called an energetic surplus, which
Mm.
means anything else that you do that day will usually work out because now you're in the green, so to speak, as
Mhm.
opposed to responding in kind, because It's like when I think it was a quote by Gandhi, right? That says that if people keep, like taking out each other's eyes, we will be left in a blind world.
Yeah, I've
So
heard that. Yeah.
when you respond, you can't respond to hate with hate. The because someone has to be the bigger person and just step back and look at that person with a little empathy and understanding. And it is so hard, especially if the person has attacked you in a very personal way, made personal comments that should not have been made to light, and they've really done you wrong. They've really done you dirty. But despite that, if you can still step back and have the presence and calmness of mind to ask yourself the question that most people are don't want to ask. It's just, why did he say what he said? What motivated him to think that way? What motivated him to betray me? And it's not about that he betrayed me. Sure, that sucks and that's terrible, and I want to get him for that. But if you take a step back and say, why did he do that? Let's understand that level of, I guess, maturity is something that is truly remarkable. And when you say that Tom Brady did that, I mean, now I don't know Tom Brady too well outside of the little things that I know, that I see in the media, who he is, the person is, his values that he stands for. But knowing this story gives me even way more respect for him and about the kind of person that he is, and what his values are, what he stands for, which means that anything else that he does, I will probably give it a second look and a second consideration, knowing that, oh, wow, this guy is like someone different. This is someone he's not just this athlete type dude. He's like someone that he's like a man of substance. So.
Well, I only have the best things to say about you, man, and I don't have to stretch very much to say them. I love the energy that you bring and the camaraderie, that you bring. You bring people together. You see the best things. I was listening to this guy talk to his team early in the morning in the Millionaire Mastermind. I'm just listening to him complimenting and building people up, and so I watch people more than they think they do, and I try to create myself from seeing the best versions of people in the world. You know what I mean? And so, grateful to have you at the event. How can people follow you? How can people get a hold of you and talk to you more about getting rid of the bad reviews?
Yeah, there's several ways that people can connect with me. I'm Rajiv Ness on Instagram. That's Rajiv, Rajivness, like happiness. Like I said, laughter and joy is very important to me, so hence Rajiv Ness. So that's my handle on Instagram. You can go to my website, rsquaremedia.com or assassin007.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/Rajiv Jadhav. So if you Google me, you will find me pretty easily. You can also find me on YouTube and a few other places that I'm sure are out there, which I haven't mentioned. But those are the ways. And of course, the fastest way is to send me a text, which is 646-249-3561. Send me a text. Let me know who you are, your full name, and the context for your outreach. And I'd be more than happy to get it to follow up with trying to understand your situation and resolve it as quickly as possible.
Brave man giving out his phone number. Guys, go share this talk, this podcast. There's three little dots. Copy the link, text it right over. Literally takes 3 clicks of your finger. I really appreciate that. Someone in your life needs to hear this, and I know you know someone right now that may be battling against a bad narrative or gets sidetracked too much in their life from bad reviews or someone saying something bad about them. Make sure you send it over. Okay. We're always looking for speakers as well. We got our Brand X Expo coming up September 19th and 20th. Super pumped for it. Just went and checked out the space the other day, having it back at the Phoenix Expo Center. So super pumped on that. This guy, we're going to get him out from New York over there again. Hey, appreciate you, man, jumping on here and appreciate everything that you bring. We'll talk soon, buddy.
Absolutely excited to be there at Brandex. It's going to be sick. It's going to be amazing. Maybe the biggest ever compared to all other expos that are out there. So I'm tremendously honored to be included.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining, guys. Be inspired in what you're doing. You are the brand X factor. You have a story, you have a narrative. Let's get that out to the world. Good talk.
Hey, you know you have a story to share with the world, which means you need to get on more life stages. We have a jam-packed schedule in 2024 full of events, including our biggest event year to date, Brand X. Go to benextgen.com/speak. Again, benextgen.com/speak. Or you could just click the link in the description. Fill out an application, our team will reach out to you and show you how our speaker partnership works. Get on a stage, get video, blow up your brand, blow up your business. Let's go.